Welcome to Through the Looking Glass. On today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about evil and the concepts of it and maybe where it arises from, how different cultures perceive good and evil differently. But before we get into the topic, as always, I'm going to hand it on over to Russ.
Hello, welcome back to Through the Looking Glass podcast. A couple guys sitting down talking about different topics and things that are going on. We decided today we're going to talk about evil, the concepts of it, maybe different morale structures around the world, and whether or not there is such a thing. Please, remember to share, subscribe, comment, give us your feedback, let us know how we're doing, what we're doing, whether it's good or not. Follow us on YouTube right now and Rumble. We're still trying to figure out our niche and things to do with everything, so we're just rolling along. So to start it off, I think I'll ask a couple of easy questions. Do we all agree that we recognize different cultures around the world, past and present, have viewed what they perceive as evil differently? Like Western society has certain moral boundaries as to what is evil. Eastern societies.
I mean, you could even go as far as to say that there's, in our history, people who have done evil, perceiving it to be something good. I mean, obviously, we can use the Nazis as one of the best examples. They thought what they were doing was a good thing, trying to create a better society on the planet. But obviously, as it turns out, pretty evil in the eyes of most people, because look at how many people were killed in concentration camps because of it. So it's interesting how an evil mind can perceive an evil thing as good. And it makes you wonder, where do they get that perception that what they're doing is good?
It's the old saying, the ends justify the means kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. They have a grander vision and whatever it takes to get there. I believe we could also give different examples if we just look back to the medieval crusades, Catholicism in the Middle Ages. Everything was being done in the name of the church and the Holy Christ and God, but clearly some things you didn't have to do. You didn't have to sail halfway across the world to go to Jerusalem and slaughter millions of people. That wasn't necessary. But we can agree that different societies have different ideals as to what is moral, good, and evil. That's kind of yeah. So, do either of you believe in objective evils? Like any examples of to what could be objectively evil to
I got a good example of
general humankind.
Oh, wait, you said objective. Never mind. My example would have been subjective. I feel like murder is a pretty objective evil. Just senseless killing. I feel like that's probably the go-to one because it seems to be about the most extreme, because you're taking human life, and if human life is sacred and valuable, then you're taking something sacred and valuable off the planet.
Right. That was basically the one example that I could think of across the world, no matter what culture, is that needlessly or selfishly murdering another person is evil. And then things kind of get muddy from there. It's very strange how there isn't an objective consensus on what could be considered evil. It's very strange, very weird.
Coming from a place of ignorance, is there any places across the globe that would view something such as grape not evil?
Yes. I do believe that in Muslim texts, a woman that is out in public, this is like the most extreme, I believe, in Sharia law. If a woman is out in public and not accompanied by a man, she's free property. You can do what you want with her. So it's not grape because she's property.
So yeah, that's clear example of where the waters get muddied in different cultures, because it seems as if not even all cultures can agree that that's a pretty evil thing to do, to just force yourself on somebody in that manner.
Yeah. South America, slavery is still widely accepted.
Isn't there still slave trade going on in Libya?
Libya, I do believe, last I checked, there's actually still slaves in Russia and China.
I did not know that. That's new information to me.
The Uyghur Muslims in China are basically labor slaves, and I believe there's also labor slavery in Russia. You get convicted of a crime, sentenced to prison, and they just use you as free labor. So it's
Like America.
yeah. A little bit. I would assume
cheap labor.
it's a bit more brutal.
They probably don't get any pay over in Russia. At least in America, they get like $1 or $2 an hour or something, so they can get commissary.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, the example of the subjective evil, I was gonna bring up because it was just for some reason the first thing that popped in my head. Hindu culture, they view cows as sacred, so killing and eating a cow to them would be a very, very evil thing. Where here in America, it's normal. You gotta eat.
It's one of the main staples of American diet is
But then,
beef.
then again, even vegans in America would consider that evil.
Fair.
They always use the term murder, and in my opinion, murder is senseless. So yeah, they're killing, but it's not murder. They're killing to actually, eat the animal and utilize it for food.
Yeah, I believe that there is a definitional difference that murder is like killing out of anger and spite senselessly, as to where if you're just killing an animal to survive.
I've heard the original interpretation from the Bible of the Ten Commandments was actually "Thou shalt not murder," not "Thou shalt not kill."
Yeah, I think Cliff actually brought that up too. It's lost in translation, a lot of old quotes that happens. But yeah, the thing is "Thou shalt not murder." It's not kill, because
killing.
then that means you're not allowed to defend yourself.
Yeah, which the Bible clearly
Clearly
wants
states you are
to defend
allowed to
yourself,
defend
yeah.
yourself, the weak, the innocent. You're allowed to do that. So that's I believe that's one of the justifications for the Crusades as well, is that was the old interpretation, and because other religions were seen as less than people that practice those religions, they weren't murdering them because they were not saved by God. It was just one of the weird justifications for crusades. Even jihads, same thing. People that do not practice that religion, you're seen as an infidel, and killing infidels is not murder. You're just killing.
I think that's why I like the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like, the people trying to do the good thing, they think they have good intentions because they're trying to create a better planet or a better place to live, but yet in trying to be over virtuous and do this good thing, they're actually causing way more pain, way more hurt, and way more chaos.
Yeah, a lot of suffering for sure. That's just like the World Economic Forum with Klaus Schwab in them. They think they know what's best for the world, and clearly they don't. Even examples here in America where we're making this huge push to try to go like full green energy. It's been stated so many times. The data has been presented in front of Congress. We don't have the infrastructure to support a full electrical grid. People will die from this. Like, we can't survive on vehicles that take 3 hours to charge, and then you get 200 miles worth of battery or solar power. That's just, it's not plausible. But it's for the greater good of mankind. Says who?
Sounds like the hydrogen cell engines would be even better than going electric.
I think we just need to stop being terrified of nuclear. Like, it's so clean and productive now. There's virtually no risk.
I just recently saw something too. I think it was over in Japan. They found a better way to like contain and cool the
like a
what do they call it? The
fission
core
reactor?
of the
Fission reactor.
reactor.
Because we don't use fusion anymore. It's now fission.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's just a more concentrated form, and there's no radioactive fallout from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just water vapor at the end of the day. Why not move to this?
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody else stand to lose a lot of money if we move into that, and
lot
we
of
won't, and you
companies.
won't see us move into that until those companies that are going to lose money are able to finally make money on it.
Oh yeah, until they have
Mm-hmm.
high enough stakes in it for sure. So Jesse, what kind of things would you perceive as objective evils?
I mean, anything that essentially the Ten Commandments. Don't steal, because they all make sense. They all make
The
sense
sermon-
to not do to one
The
another.
Sermon on the Mount too, the Beatitudes. Like when you break that down, like I feel like that's pretty much telling you how to live a good life and not an evil one.
So would kind of described in Dante's Inferno, the 9 circles, those would be considered evils, gluttony, lust, things like that. Are those all evils or just sins?
Well, they're synonymous, I think. A sin
Well,
is
probably
evil.
Probably pretty synonymous,
fairly
yeah.
synonymous. But you can be gluttonous without it like affecting somebody else's life in a negative way. So therefore, it would just be a sin, not really an evil.
Still evil to do to yourself though, because if you
Yeah.
love yourself, you wouldn't want to do evil to yourself. So being gluttonous to yourself would still do damage to you.
Fair point. Very fair. Very fair. So yeah, evil and sin, synonymous. I think we can all agree, like we said, murder, rape, trafficking, of course, child trafficking, things like that. It's all fairly evil, but there are people in the world that don't believe such. Even college professors and learned people in America are starting to try and normalize certain sinful activities when it's just a little ridiculous.
Pretty sure Jesus says it's better for those people to have a millstone hung around their neck and thrown into the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, but when you don't believe in those things and then you are taught a bunch of other things and your head is filled with all this other stuff, you find a way to justify these actions and these thoughts, which is I believe one of the things that kind of led Adolf to the beliefs that he had. He grew up during World War I. It was an absolute catastrophe. Millions of people were dying all over the world. Health, famine, everything was at a loss. His home country ended up losing, of course, and they were screwed over by the treaty they had to sign. He found solace in an ideology, fascism a little bit, with a mix of communism, a little bit of socialism in there. He found somebody to blame, and his solution was, I will make the world a better place if we just get rid of these people. He found a way to justify it. There's always going to be people that find a way to justify awful actions. I think that's the root of evil, is justifying an action that ultimately leads to the destruction of another person. But
I think there needs to be somebody intelligent enough and witty enough to counter everything that person is trying to say to justify it. And at least in today's day and age with, the internet, if there was certain hateful messages being spread around, it would be a lot easier for somebody to counter that. At least, back in the day when it was just in person, it's a lot harder to counter the narrative going around.
But you are also relying on someone else's interpretation. Like if I type something out on the internet,
I'm talking about
can't
even
determine-
like YouTube videos where, I can go make a video talking about
Oh yeah,
why that kind of ideology is dangerous and terrible.
hey, you can't force them to watch it, right? So
Can't, but I can at least put it out there.
yeah, I believe that's why socialism and communism has become so popular over the last 20 or 30 years, it's just there's so much information out there of people just praising it and what good it can do for the world, but they always seem to exclude the millions and millions of people that it's killed.
That's why I like
wild.
the way you put it. What it could do for the world. Like in theory, it sounds great, but you
Yeah.
haven't seen it practiced in application well enough yet.
I've brought this up numerous times. Humans are just not capable. We are selfish, broken creatures. We're not capable of that kind of ideology. You would have to transform humans to like a core level. And the only way you could do that is by force, which is then the ends justify the means. So you're committing atrocities and evil to try to get to a utopia that will just, it will take 100 generations of people to get there. That's not worth it. It's not. I don't see that outcome ever happening. So objective evil, we believe, we can basically agree. What if, now I just kind of lost the way I was going to act. So let's say one day, just today, intergalactic beings come down to our planet, aliens, and they have a society structured in a way that we would deem objectively evil, and they would deem our society objectively evil, blah, blah, blah. How do we resolve that? Do you guys see, like...
It depends, though, because if these creatures are on a higher conscious level than we are, then in a way they're connected to the universe much higher than we are. They're tapped into their DNA much more than we are. See, I believe all the secrets of the universe are actually encoded into our DNA. It's just learning how to tap into that and actually get the information. And if these creatures came here, I feel like they would be tapped into something higher than we are. And if there is an objective good and evil, I feel like these beings would probably understand it better than we are, than we do. They would, I feel like, be more in tune, more connected, more spiritually awakened.
That's to assume that they came here willingly. Have either of you seen the film District 9, I believe it's called?
I don't think so.
So aliens come to Earth, but they come basically in a broken ship. And as the story goes, if I'm remembering District 9 correctly, they're a species of like kind of reptilian creatures. They come to Earth on a basically a salvage ship, and as the story goes, is they destroyed their planet in that kind of a scenario. So creatures come to Earth. They're basically illegal immigrants. They're the last of their kind. They destroyed their planet. They come here and they see things completely different than we do. How do we resolve that?
Well, if they're able to even come to Earth, there's probably no resolving anything with them. They could probably easily just wipe us out.
Well, if they, like in that scenario, if they barely have anything, they have one last ship, they barely escape, and they get here and they have no resources, and it's only like 50 of them or something.
Yeah, it's not like they
in
had
that sense, they probably wouldn't have a chance.
Well, no, but
that's the scenario. Just imagine that they don't have weapons. They don't come
yeah, that's
here
an
with
interesting
things
one.
like that.
I say just give them
How intelligent are they?
enough to
human levels.
get a ship.
So like
So not much more intelligent than humans?
right. So I believe if we go off basically the premise of that film.
Can they shapeshift?
No.
Okay.
But like the basis of that film was the ship that they come on is like it's their arc. This is their one and only shot to get here, and then they did. They're intergalactic refugees. They can't go home. There's no way. And like something wiped out a majority of their species. They come here. They're just looking for a new place. But like parts of their culture are completely different than everything else on our planet. Do we do we give them a shot, or do we fucking say
most
no
likely
thanks?
Most likely human beings wouldn't give them a shot because stuck in our ways of wanting to be right and wanting things the way we want them, having power over that. I mean, me as a logical person, I feel like if these beings were able to communicate a better way of life with me and why it made sense, obviously I'd give it a try, but I can't speak for the whole of humanity because I feel like most humans would be like, they're coming to take our job, rah! Not even listen. So,
but in today's society, there would be a lot of purple and blue-haired people that would be like, let them in, let them in. So,
I mean, if they got interesting stuff to say, yeah, let them in.
Well, would you just give them their own area?
That's the thing. That would then basically be like a
they get to
Native
have their
American reservations.
Yeah, they get to have their own small country essentially.
Right.
To
Most likely, our government would put them in their own area, but that area would probably be a lab, and we'd probably be studying and testing on them and whatnot.
It's crazy because then it's like, are we then being evil? Because here we have a species, clearly life forms outside of Earth as we know it, and then because it's the last of their kind, or they maybe have technology, or they're not human, we then don't see them as a species with innate rights. It's a lot of hard thinking would have to be done. Like, how do we overcome? We can't even overcome these differences with our own species.
That's where it gets into the philosophical idea of, is there even good and evil, or is it all just subjective, and what is just what it is, or what is, and that we put the tags of good and evil on everything.
See, I believe that's where a real debate would come in, because I believe the argument would then be, if all of that, if good and evil is nothing but subjective, then someone could very easily convince enough people to believe that because it is subjective, that murdering people is actually good. There's too many people on the planet. Let's reduce the population.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be terrified if our world started believing that.
Mm-hmm. See, that's where I feel like there is some kind of objective good and evil. I feel like there's a reason so many people across the planet just understand why murdering is evil. Again, I guess I'll relate that back to like genetic coding, that somehow the objective good and evil is even encoded into our DNA. Like, somehow we know it deep down. It's like this inner knowing, and we know. Even though a lot of people won't admit it, like there's a feeling most people get, that when they're doing something wrong or evil, they feel it. Not all, but I feel like
they may
most.
not listen to it, but
they at least feel it.
Psychopaths.
Yeah.
They at least feel it, and I feel like if you're feeling it, somehow that's your intuition telling you something, right. Your instincts coming from your genetics. So,
well, this is one of the point of views that I heard a while back, that of course, if a woman has a child, she has a deep, unconditional love for that child. Mm-hmm. And medically and scientifically speaking, the reason why that is because there's chemical firing off in your brain, that when you give birth, something happens in your brain where you have an innate biological desire to keep that creature alive. And that's what we call love. Mm-hmm. And people try to say it's literally just chemicals in your brain convincing you of this. Is it?
I think the chemicals in the brain help us feel this thing called love, but I don't think that's just what love is.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's those chemicals that help us interface with the whole feeling and idea of love.
But that's where the stripping humanity from the equation then starts to get kind of creepy, is people might start saying it's just chemicals in your brain. Mm-hmm. You can overcome it. You love them. You think you love them. It's nothing more than chemicals in your brain. Just push the button. There's too many people. Just push the button.
See, even not being a Christian, I feel like one of my arguments would be, If love is just chemicals in the brain, then explain how Jesus just loved everybody. I mean, I'm sure that man still had to feel human emotions and feel annoyed when those chemicals went off and have to use love to use his higher mind to overcome those feelings. To overcome those lower animalistic feelings, you got to live up higher in Christ and live in the higher mind, which takes love to live in.
If you were having a debate with somebody about that, I believe they would brush that off and be like, "We're talking about science, not fairy tales in a book."
All right, but I'm asking them, okay, have your science explain how a human being could literally just love everybody. If love is just a chemical reaction in the brain similar to any other emotion, then how could Jesus still love somebody even if he felt annoyed with them, felt angry with them? Like those are, I feel like the emotions would just they're not matching there. They kind of they fight with each other. So to me, that's not making sense how both chemicals could be firing at the same time, feeling love and anxiety. I feel like that takes something higher than just the brain, which again another philosophical debate. Like, is the mind separate from the brain? Like, is the mind something else than the brain that's thinking the thoughts?
I believe consciousness and your brain are two different things that are constantly struggling against each other, sometimes in agreement, but constantly at odds.
That's one of the things I've related the mind to, is that consciousness, that's the mind, and the brain is just what the mind uses to interface with reality.
Right. It's humans are weird, man. Very strange.
So this leads me to my next question. If there is objective good and evil, where did they come from? Where did evil arise? Where did it come from?
I was just about to ask if we wanted to touch on all the religions and where they believe that they... I got 5 written down. I got the Hindus, the Christians, the Greek mythology, the Native Americans, and Muslims. Where and why they think evil came about.
Hell yeah, let's hear that.
So the Hindus believe it's karma, cause and effect. It's just a natural part of life.
Every action has a reaction.
Yep, it's plain and simple for Hinduism. Christians believe, obviously, when Satan rebelled against God, that's when evil was introduced into the world. Everything before that was it was all good, and then jealousy sprang into action, and he wanted to be top dog. In the Greek mythology, this one was a little confusing. I think I got it right, but Prometheus stole fire from heaven, and Zeus took vengeance by giving Pandora's box to Prometheus's brother, and when it was opened, it released sickness, death, and other evils onto the world.
Holy fuck, that's where the phrase "open Pandora's box" came from. I never fucking knew that, man.
Yeah.
I've heard the phrase so many times. I've used it. I never knew that's where it originated.
Greek mythology. It's a very interesting.
Yeah, interesting to say the least.
Mythology in and of itself, just all cultures, is fascinating and interesting. And it always makes you wonder, are these real stories or were they just like books and fairy tales we write today?
And if I remember correctly, Prometheus was then cursed and became Hades, and was given the guard dog Cerberus to reside over
Hades.
hell.
Hades is Zeus's brother.
Yeah,
I think that he always was.
but Prometheus was.
Zeus and Hades were just always have been.
Then I'm misremembering. But I remember like the war against the Titans, where everything came about.
Yeah.
Where the gods fought the Titans. The Titans used to rule over the universe, but the gods came in. Yeah, Pandora's box. I've heard a little bit about that. And who is the other brother? There's the one that rules over heaven, Zeus. Hades rules over
Poseidon
rules over the seas. Yeah.
Yep.
So was Prometheus? I'll have to look more.
Yeah, I'm not sure who Prometheus was, but he was a guy. And he did bad.
Yeah.
He did a bad. And the Native American mythology, it's imbalance of nature from tricksters and other malevolent spirits.
So I do wonder how many of like those five, truth or the word came from prophet people. Christianity, of course, did prophets. Catholicism as well was prophetic.
Well, it's
The word of God.
yeah, it's the same as Christianity, except for some.
They don't
couple
worship
weird
Jesus.
differences.
They still worship God in the Mary.
Well, I mean, they do.
Catholics can also pray to saints as well. I believe.
Yeah, they think there's intermediaries, like
Right.
other people can hear you, which they can't. they're-
We also have, of course, Muslim had Muhammad.
Yeah, the Muslims, Shaitan, which Satan, he didn't bow down to Adam when he was created, and then after that point,
To Adam?
he was jealous of man.
Adam, the first man, is a prophet.
Yeah,
in,
not him.
Muslim. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, motherfucker should have bowed down to me. Should have.
And then after that point, he then influenced people to commit evil acts.
Okay.
That's
But wouldn't evil have to be there for him, or wouldn't evil have to already be there for him to convince people to do evil acts? Because if evil wasn't there, then how could you convince them to do evil acts?
I think, I believe that does come down to like the natural force of balance just in our universe. Like for every action, there does seem to be a reaction. If our universe was created by a supernatural being, then there may be rules or laws that he too has to kind of adhere to. I'm sure if he was able to do anything, there are still reactions to what he does.
So that law, like in Taoism, there's the idea of mutual arising. So if it is just the balance of forces, then if mutual arising is a truth, then with the arising of good has to come its opposite of evil.
Right.
So they both must arise together, which goes back to a couple episodes ago where I said, this is why I believe God did create both good and evil. If he created everything, he would have had to already have created evil for evil to even be there is an option for anybody to choose it or do it.
Right. So it then would come to, do you choose to believe that God created evil or that evil was a byproduct of him creating good and he saw that as a necessity?
I would like to think that it would be some kind of necessity for the journey of consciousness or our soul, that somehow evil is necessary for something, and anything I put after that would be complete speculation, because I mean, if God created evil, we could never truly understand probably until we get back home with him why it was created. I've got a couple ideas and speculations that part of it is to help teach our soul lessons along its journey of growth.
Right. Well, if humans didn't have a concept of what evil was, then everything would just be bedlam, There would be murders in the streets and nobody would have a second thought about it. Like, no, there's another one. Hopefully it's not me tomorrow. That kind of a thing.
I mean, some countries are like that.
Sure. And kidnappings happen all the time in South America. And
But that's more or less from the governing bodies.
yeah.
The crazy thing is, and I don't want to sound too pessimistic here, but like, you could probably see that in New York City. New York City, everyone's just so in their own head and in their own world. Somebody could probably get stabbed to death on the street and nobody even stopped to notice.
It's happened. No, they just pull out their phone.
It's either that or they're already on their phone and they just don't even pay attention to it happening. They don't pay attention to people yelling because there's crazies
sure.
everywhere. And
I'm sure there's somebody lying dead on the street right now in New York City, and 1,000 people have walked past their body. So, yeah, for sure. Nowadays, it's difficult because more and more people don't want to get involved because I can't remember his name, but the one guy who was like screaming on the subway train how he was going to murder somebody. I'll murder you all. I'll do this. I'll do that.
Oh, yeah.
And
No,
then
the
he
case
was
you're talking
taken
about.
down.
Oh,
And then he got arrested.
yeah.
Like, it's less and less people want to put themselves out there to do good because of the
Yeah,
consequences.
you're talking about the ex-marine or
Yeah.
something that put him in the headlock or
Yep, and he ended up dying from
Yeah.
it. Well, I mean, that's kind of what happens. But, yeah, people don't want to get involved. When you see somebody approaching someone with a knife, very few people want to intervene because, one, you could die. Two, you could kill that person, and then you're going to prison for life because you were protecting somebody. Okay. But this is kind of where I believe these weird shifts in human perspective are starting to go. And it's a little scary because, like, if we can't have trust and faith in the other people in our own communities to rise to an occasion, then evil will become just second nature again. We'll start becoming feral animals. Because what's the point of sticking your neck out for somebody if you're just going to get in trouble for it? It's going to be all about me, my best interests. Screw you.
So have you ever thought about evil in like almost more of a scientific sense? Like the way that there's no such thing as darkness, it's just lack of light. That there's no such thing as cold, it's just lack of heat. That there's no such thing as evil, it's just lack of love.
Or lack of good. I haven't thought about that, but I think it just comes back to the for every action there's a reaction. There has to be like a balance to it.
Well, I feel like the only thing that could cause somebody to do true evil is having no love in your heart. I feel like to do an evil act, it's just you've got no awareness of love in your mind or in your heart at those moments.
yeah. I
Psychopaths.
could see it being explained like that. That does make sense.
That's basically psychopathy.
I've had a lot of ideas.
The lack
They're
of
not all good, but
the lack of empathy that somebody could have, so they just start hurting things. Yeah.
not saying I never felt empathy prior, but like understanding empathy for me definitely came through my psychedelic journey. Not saying psychedelics could help everybody be more empathetic, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't help me be more empathetic and really think about every choice I was making and how it could impact or affect the person that I was making that choice to or against. Downfall with that was thinking back on a lot of the past shit that I did and having trouble letting go of it. That was a little difficult, but that can be the danger of overthinking things because now you're thinking about shit in the past and how it was bad, and now you're not able to let go of it, so you're beating yourself up over it.
Yeah.
But that's-
Empathy is a difficult thing for some people.
But that's the other thing too. Why I say like somehow like what's right and wrong, good and evil is I feel like somehow inside of us, and I feel like the psychedelics were just that tool that helped my brain connect in the right way to, help me dig that out from inside and really feel like, okay, these things are right, these things are wrong.
Some would argue that it's more of like a societal upbringing or a social construct.
But that's the other thing, though. Psychedelics will help you break down those social constructs. They'll really help you break away from societal traditions and what society and religion deems to be truth, and I don't know, just makes you explore everything for yourself.
Not everybody's really willing to go down that path.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't
course.
condone it to everybody either, because I don't think every mind is capable of handling a psychedelic experience. As much as I say I think it's everybody's birthright and that it's just as important to the human experience as, going to school for the first time, getting your driver's license, getting your first girlfriend, having your first kiss, losing your virginity, going to college. Terrence McKenna puts it like that all the time, that the psychedelic experience is just as crucial to the human experience as all of those. And I do agree with him in a sense, but I still don't know if I'd condone it to everybody after 12 years of exploration.
Some things just aren't meant for everybody. You know? Like there's been studies about alcohol. It affects different peoples differently. I think you could really say that even marijuana, some people it just does not work for. So
I've met people that can eat mushrooms, drop acid, but they smoke a little weed and they're paranoid as fuck, freaking out. So it's strange.
It is. Sometimes you just got to find your own thing. But as it comes to like feeling empathy that you brought up, it's the same thing. There's such a thing as being too empathetic.
Yep.
You can absolutely have such a lack of empathy that it kind of makes you a monster. But if you're too empathetic and you let people walk all over you because they've had it tough, you're just going to make situations worse for everybody else around.
You can make it worse for yourself too. Like part of that realization I was telling you about earlier, like that's part of it. Like I've tried to be so empathetic and put other people before me that it's driven me crazy, because now I never put my foot down, stand up for myself. And it's like, okay, that's got to end. You got to find that balance.
That's one of the things that I have thought about, is that perhaps our society, Western society right now, is becoming far too empathetic. And then people will try to gaslight you. Oh, you don't care about other people? No. I do care about them, but it's not my responsibility to take care of them. I have myself to worry about. If somebody decides that they don't want to get a job and they just want to live off the system, or even be homeless, it is not my responsibility to give them the things that they need, their necessities to survive. They're not doing it themselves. How empathetic do you want me to be? I've got myself to worry about. I have the people in my life. I have the loved ones. I can't have the same love for every single... I am not Jesus. I can't love everybody. I'll try to, but if you're not willing to do the things that I believe you need to do for yourself, I'm not going to do them for you.
Yeah, you can only stretch yourself so thin.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect example of that in life is like say a family that's got somebody hard into drugs that just...
You can only help them out so much.
Can't give them a place to stay anymore because they're just going to steal your stuff. They're going to disrespect your home, sell all your belongings. And it's like, eventually, that's where you got to hit them with the tough love and be like, look, this is what's best for your life. You need to cut out the shit. I'm sorry. I love you. I care about you, but you need to stop. There's nothing else I can do to help you. You have to help yourself.
Yeah. You're basically cutting off your own hands when you do that, when you just enable such behavior. But there's always going to be warriors out there. How dare you do this to your own family? It's like, you don't know the story. You don't know what's been going on. You don't know the kinds of things. Like, for all we know, this meth head has put a knife to their mother's throat because she said she's not going to give them $10 to go get high. Who's the one truly suffering here? The mother, who is watching their own flesh and blood destroy themselves day in and day out, or the person who just wants to get high because they're depressed? I think that mother is going through a literal hell watching their own child destroy themselves. That's far worse. I feel way more empathy for somebody that is trying to help somebody else than the person who is suffering.
And that person that's helping the person is just getting walked over, stepped on, disrespected.
Those are the people that I feel true empathy for. People that are strong enough to stick through and try to help other people. I far more empathy for them.
See, that's why I feel like some people would probably say, how's it take you 12 years or longer to understand love? And, love's been a big topic on all my psychedelic experiences. And it's like, I don't think human beings have a full grasp of what love is. Because sometimes, as of where I stand right now, I do believe there is a thing is like stern love. Like, you have to be stern sometimes.
It's usually called fatherly love. Tough love, fatherly love. Yeah, you love somebody so much that you have to be strict with them so that their life is easier later on.
Yeah, a good example, if I gotta bring psychedelics into it, mushrooms would be a fatherly love, where ayahuasca would be a motherly love.
I don't quite.
Mushrooms would
One's
be,
way more overbearing and stronger than the other. I don't
so the ayahuasca might give you like more visionary experiences, but the mother ayahuasca that a lot of people have met seems to be very nurturing, very soothing. Even though she's like being real with you, she's soft about it. Where sometimes mushrooms will just be right up in your fucking face, letting you know about yourself. Harsh.
I didn't think. I thought mushrooms were much more mild. I'm assuming that does depend on the mushrooms, of course.
Mild on the visionary state, more likely, but sometimes on the mental, they can be pretty difficult. I've only done a modified form of ayahuasca once. I'd love to actually go do an actual ceremony. So until I actually do a good form of ayahuasca that is potent, I won't know the difference in the mental state. But as far as like having visionary experiences, I know you're more likely to have them on ayahuasca.
I could definitely, yeah. I always thought mushrooms were pretty visual, but more of like silly kind of thing. People have brought.
They can be silly, but they can also be, sometimes the deeper you go, they can be. Trying to think of a word beyond silly. They can be wonky, they can be terrifying, they can be enlightening, all at the same time too. Like
they're very good at giving you.
They're enlightening you in a wonky
things are.
way that's terrifying. I guess that's the best phrase I can put it in.
Good descriptor. Yeah, just.
Did we touch on like where we personally thought evil came from? Because
where it comes from?
Yeah, like where you think it would come from.
I believe just from things that I've read and seen from humans, I think it's learned. There are innate things that you, as a child,
But where did they learn it from? If they learned it, they had to learn it from a thing that was there. So where did that thing come? Where did that thing come from?
From your upbringing. I believe that children are so moldable that they can learn just about anything from habits of people, from just their from their surroundings. The formative years of a child, the first 7 years, is like the most impactful. And what a child experiences within those first 7 years, from my understanding, is what shapes the world around them. You can teach a child at the age of 2 or 3, like proper gun safety, and that will stick with them for the rest of their life. That's why language in the first couple of years of a child's life is so important, and that's why some children become so easily bilingual.
But to teach them that gun safety already had to be there for them to be taught. So if they're taught evil, or if they learned it, where did it come from for them to be able to learn it?
From their just natural surroundings. It's hard to dive deeper into that.
Well, we're saying the origin of evil. Like, so what was the first evil thing in the world?
But what he just said
there's
though.
no way for us to.
What he just said though, and I don't want to
to
assume what you were saying, but what you said though, almost made it sound like you were saying that evil is just kind of natural, that it's just naturally here, as part of the whole human experience.
But then, yes and no. But if a child is taught that what we perceive as evil isn't evil, then they will see it that way their whole life. Mm-hmm. So if if we just go based on, like, let's say some sci-fi novel or movie, like take Dune, for instance, there's these great houses that are intergalactically, like, struggling with each other. One house believes in honor, respect, and duty. Another house is built on deception, murder, and conniving. If children are raised in a certain manner, that will stick with them the rest of their life. If Western society right now, when we first remember, if we were taught that murder is okay, deceiving other people is good, that being treacherous and conniving was natural, we would most likely have those characteristics, and we wouldn't see it as evil. So I personally believe that it really does come down to what you are taught generationally. If we slowly move towards something else, then it will be that.
So wouldn't that only be a subjective evil, though, if it's what we're taught in those ways?
Yeah.
Like I think I want to know where, like, subjective evil comes from. And again, the only ideas I have would be kind of Taoism, and kind of similar to the Hindu religion, how they believe it's just kind of part of nature and it arises. And everything in nature's got a purpose. So if it's there, it's got to have a purpose. What that is, we may never know in human form, but
yeah. So I think, because I do believe in, like, an objective evil and a subjective. So to explain better as to my perspective on objective evil is if it does harm humans as a whole. So murder, I believe, is objectively evil because you are hindering our species at its level. If we were to subjectively perceive murder as not evil, it is still objectively evil.
you know what's odd that just popped in my head? Is that if there is an objective evil and the objective evil of the Christian religion is true, then all objective evil came from a subjective experience.
Break that down again. Hold on. Go.
The Ten Commandments came from the burning bush experience, correct?
Yes.
Which was a subjective experience with God. Yes. And that means the objective evil that Christians have came from a subjective experience.
Isn't it explained somewhere in Scripture that people who hear the voice of God, they don't. It is given to them in a way where it cannot be misconstrued.
If that's the truth, then God spoke to me last weekend because I couldn't misconstrue what was said to me. And that's the issue with subjective experience is, and I'm not using this example in a negative light. It's just an example that's out there. You've got people that believe they're in the wrong gendered body, and they truly believe that. Mm-hmm. So when someone says the voice of God spoke to me and said something to me, I can't ignore it, and they truly believe that, there really is no way to prove if that's true. Yes, they believe it, but there's no way to prove it's true, so it still leaves it a subjective experience. That's what's fascinating to me right now as I ponder it, is that the objective truth of evil and good came from subjective experiences.
You might have to, if you really want to try and, like, dive deeper on that, you'll probably have to use a different example, because even if a trans person, let's say a trans man, a woman transitioning to a man, believes wholeheartedly that they are in the wrong body, mm-hmm. they are still objectively in a female body.
They are.
So that kind of stumps it, but
it doesn't quite stump it for me, though, because even though I do believe there is an objective truth, how do we know that person's subjective experience got us to this objective truth? Like, how do we know that that's the truth other than just saying, oh, I believe them?
Someone, another human being's subjective truth ultimately led us to where we are now?
At least for the Christian religion, because the Ten Commandments came from that subjective experience. This is another reason why I've said in this episode and in the past that somehow I believe hold on one second. Somehow I believe these truths of what's good and evil is somehow in our DNA, and it's very possible that the burning bush experience may have been some kind of meditation or even a drug-induced experience where he had this inner experience where his genetics or God within, because I'm pretty sure the Bible does teach God is within us, that the kingdom of heaven is within us, and I feel like we could actually connect to God going inward. I feel like there's an important connection there with what I said about it being encoded into our genetics. And maybe that objective truth is not just heard, but felt by the people that Moses was speaking to, or the people that Jesus was speaking to. It's like when somebody's speaking truth, I feel like there's a feeling you get. Like it just, the hippie community would use the term resonate. Like that resonates so deeply. I can feel it in my core. I feel like that's some kind of stimuli or some kind of sense the human body has to be able to understand that truth. Like if you can feel it that deeply, it's hard to deny.
Yeah. 10 Commandments were inscribed onto tablets by God on the top of Mount Sinai by Moses.
Mm-hmm. As the story goes.
Yeah.
Which again is just a story from a subjective experience.
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, he climbed the mountain and then he came down with stone tablets that were inscribed, and then there were many people that witnessed it when he came down.
I mean, there's been a lot of people that have gone on psychedelic trips and written down some wild shit while they've been up there,
Sure.
Not saying he was tripping, but it could have been a meditation where, and I truly believe that if this energy, this consciousness exists, that if Moses went up on that hill, that maybe Moses's body helped inscribe on that stone tablet, but it wasn't Moses, the person, his brain actually doing it. If I believe in consciousness the way I think I do, then this thing we call God can inhibit anybody that it wants to at any time and speak through them, work through them, and it's very possible that's what happened to Moses. That he got into a meditation of some sort and God literally worked or spoke through him to create these 10 Commandments.
I mean, yeah.
I think that kind of falls into Catholic believings, isn't that? Like cardinals and popes, they're kind of ordained by God, and they have...
I'm not really sure on the Catholic religion.
But even then, though, it would still all be a subjective experience.
For that individual person, yes. But if we believe in like the scientific method and how we derive data, all subjective experiences, if they correlate with each other and have the same results, then we could speak objectively.
Mm-hmm. That's why I brought up the idea of like when Moses came down speaking these truths, like people just felt it. They resonated with it. If it's truth, I feel like somehow it resonates within us. I feel like I'm asking this question a lot to make sense of my own experience last weekend as well, because my experience last weekend was subjective, but yet there was also two other people there in the experience experiencing it as well and going through similar things, even though we were all three in different bodies. So I guess that's why I'm asking this a lot, because what was ever communicating with me the other night or through me, I was speaking. And the weird thing is what was ever speaking, it wasn't just me, Adam, speaking to Amjad and Erica, because what was ever speaking through me literally called me out too. Like it was calling me out on my shit about not living in a vibration of love and not living in that. And it's just very strange because I didn't feel like I was speaking. And whatever this thing was, had love in its mind. Like whatever its plans are, it's love. And it was trying to communicate this message of love with Erica, Amjad, and I. And I still don't know how to fully describe it because, again, it's a subjective experience, but I feel like there was some kind of objective truth being communicated to the three of us that night.
Yeah, something like that would be hard to explain.
Mm-hmm.
It would take you more than just a week.
I'm gonna need
to try to decipher or realize what that might have.
I feel like
it
I
could
would
take
need
you an entire lifetime to really understand the depth of that experience.
I feel like I would need theologians, neuroscientists, maybe just those two combined could help, but I don't know. It's a very
maybe some shamans and gurus would help.
Maybe because the experience definitely felt very shamanic. Like I literally got into a trance by dancing around before I started speaking. But before I started speaking about everything, is a little freak out I had on myself about not showing up for my own life. And even though I was communicating with myself, I feel like this higher thing was like making me talk to myself like that. Like, what are you doing? This is your life. Why are you not showing up for your life? You get one to live. What are you doing? Why are you not showing up for it? And then from there, like, we just got onto this whole thing of love, and I never had to think about anything I said. It just flowed right out.
Kind of sounds like your quiet subconscious got fed up with some shit and decided to tell you about yourself.
Yeah, that part was my subconscious, but then everything else that followed after that about all these ideas of love and everything that was coming out of my mouth literally just sounded like some objective truth coming from God. I don't know how to make sense of it yet.
You've been kind of writing this for feels like a couple months now, where you've been talking a lot and really bringing this out. So maybe it was something more, or
I mean, the feeling I get is the feeling tells me not to question it because what you experienced was truth, and questioning it will only drive you insane. And that feeling is a feeling of truth, and there's no denying it when you feel it. And that's another thing that's so strange to me too, because literally everything this thing was communicating to us all ties back to Christ. So again, somebody who's not a Christian, who hasn't read the Bible, just knows a couple snippets, how do I get that information from something that even Christians would call a sin? Because they would say it's a sin to do that drug. But yet, in the experience, I pay attention to what I'm feeling and the ideas coming into my head, and yet almost all the ideas of love match up exactly with things Christ talked about and the ideas he spoke of. And it's not that I'm thinking they're true. There's literally a feeling that comes along with these ideas.
Right. Does the Bible say anything about?
The only thing it touches on is God gave us things to enjoy, but don't overindulge.
Yeah.
It's like the idea of not listening to the drunkard. Like, there's nothing wrong with having some wine, but somebody who's always drunk, don't listen to him.
Didn't even Jesus drank wine, didn't he?
It was very low
Limited.
alcoholic content back then. But
he's still, like, at the Last Supper and everything. He took part in the festivities, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
of course, overindulgence, that's gluttony. That's a sin.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm probably going to be called blasphemous for this, or a heretic. But I've gone as far multiple times in my life to say, when you go to church and you eat the little piece of bread, that's the body of Christ. When you take the little shot of wine, that's the blood of Christ. And in my mind, when I drop LSD, I am literally taking or experiencing the mind or consciousness of Christ. And that might sound arrogant to say. It might sound absolute lunacy, but that's exactly how I feel, and I won't deny those feelings.
Right. It would be very difficult to take somebody seriously that says, no, that's not true, if they've never experienced it themselves.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I know a bunch of other people who have experienced LSD, and there's a lot of people that say they've, experienced divine or been touched by God or something higher on psychedelics, but I've never heard anybody relate it to being the consciousness or the mind of Christ.
Maybe it was something more, or just like how most substances have similar effects on people. Maybe your subconscious mind just has been feeding you these experiences.
It's possible.
Yeah, it is always possible that it could be something spiritually and higher, but there's just as high as of a possibility that it's simply a hallucinogenic experience.
Highly possible, but even the experience has made me agree with one of Cliff Nechtel's arguments that human beings need Christ because we can't trust our own animalistic instincts and our own animalistic mind. And on this recent trip, what I was relating that to, I'm sure you guys know about the chakra system that's within the human beings, the 7 chakras. So those lower ones would be more your animalistic nature or your animalistic instincts, your lower nature, where living in Christ is... Yeah, living in Christ is up in your higher nature, where you still are going to feel and experience all of that lower instinct, but living in Christ up in a higher consciousness, up in your mind, is what's going to help you overcome all of those urges or actions we would call sin. And I know a lot of Christians...
It's very hard having the human experience to not indulge in sin.
Oh, very, very much. It's hard, but I mean, I guess
it's so hard that
what kind of sin are we talking? Are we talking about like the original sin, or how Christians nowadays call everything sin? Because like original sin, I think it'd still be sin. You don't steal, you don't murder, no forcing yourself on people in any sexual manner. Help me out with the 10 Commandments here.
Let's just...
Cheating on your wife, that's a sin, in my opinion. You don't do that,
Well, that's adultery.
Yeah, that's
allowed.
the word. I couldn't think of it. Adultery. Thank you.
All right, 10 Commandments.
But like the way like Christians today call yoga and stuff like that, like of the devil and sin. It's like...
What?
Oh, yeah, there's people that'll call yoga evil.
I think those are trolls.
People that call Christians that'll call meditating evil. That when you meditate, you're getting in contact with evil beings. But in my opinion, if they pray to God,
praying is meditation.
Well, in my opinion, praying is when you talk to God. It can be meditative, but meditating is when you sit there and listen. And the only way to listen to God and to understand what God's trying to say to you is to have a completely clear mind, which is meditation. Because if you're thinking, that means there's interference and you're not able to connect and understand what God's trying to communicate to you.
I have never heard somebody of any religion say that like meditation is contacting the devil or anything.
Oh, I've heard it. I've seen it.
Like where though?
Oh, all over Facebook. I'm in. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
There's bot farms all over Facebook. It's very difficult to take anything on Facebook seriously.
I mean, even a decade ago, was there that many bot farms in 2012?
I believe that's around when it started.
2012, yeah.
Because I've even met people in person, like in person people that have said these things out of their mouth.
Well, they're it's. Yep, that's an opinion. Mm-hmm. That's really all you say. Yep, that's an opinion.
Those are
meditation is of the devil.
Those are the extreme
that's
people.
An opinion.
Those are the extreme people that want to say everything they disagree with is evil or a sin. It's like, no, I think your God decides what's evil and what's a sin, not you.
Yeah, that's,
so the 10 Commandments.
That's the pendulum swing where there's extremes.
No other gods before me, which makes sense. Don't worship false idols. That's the next one. Don't have any graven image. Don't take the Lord's name in vain.
What's the exact definition of a graven image?
I don't know. It probably goes over in more detail.
Because is Jesus on the cross a graven image? I'll Google the exact definition real quick.
Keep the Sabbath, honor thy father and thy mother, no killing, no murdering, no adultery, and no stealing.
See, I do
1, 2,
believe
3,
that
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's only 8. Why wouldn't it show all 10?
I believe a majority of the commandments have been manipulated.
Okay, so
by certain groups.
I can counter myself here. When I pulled up graven image, it says, is an idol an object or image such as a statue that is worshipped as the representation of a deity or god. If there's no other gods before him and it's a statue of Jesus, one could argue that it's not a graven image, but the argument could still be made that it's a graven image because it's a statue or something that's being worshipped at rather than just worshiping God itself.
Well, yeah, it's not like if you have a cross, you're not worshiping that. Mm-hmm. It's just a representation of what you believe. Yeah. And then the last two are don't bear false witness against thy neighbor, and then thou shalt not covet. No, don't be jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, all those things are pretty solid. They sound like,
right.
what we would call evil actions. Like, just be a good person.
But then it does come down to, can you convince people can you manipulate that and convince enough people to do evil? And it has been done,
Can you manipulate enough people and convince them to do good?
Yeah, of course.
That's a challenge. I might be up for that challenge.
That's what Jesus tried doing.
I might be up for that challenge.
He tried manipulating enough people to do good.
Yeah,
it's still a form of manipulation.
I've always said in the past, if you can learn the art of manipulating a human's mind, what would happen if you actually used that for good and manipulated people into believing themselves? And
that's the difficult part, because most people that are interested in learning that kind of thing are the kind of people that shouldn't.
Yeah, that's a solid point.
It's one of those who seek power don't deserve it,
mm-hmm.
That's another folly of human beings, and where that pendulum swings back and forth, where there's just so much extremes. Finding the center, finding balance, finding your center, finding a balance in life is so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I suffer with sins of my own. Like, I'm a huge glutton when it comes to food or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when to stop, especially when it comes to a certain type of food or something. If I get a craving, I'll literally eat it until
you order a pizza, you're eating the whole thing, whether or not there's 2 slices left, and you're like, I can't eat that, but I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah, you get a bag of chips for the week, and then you sit down after smoking a bong, and then 10, 15 minutes later, you're like, oh, fuck, my whole bag of chips is gone, dude.
Yeah.
And then you just feel like a disgusting person.
Or just when you're not even hungry or don't have a craving at all, you walk into a place, you see something, you're like, oh, I'll try that. Why? I'm not hungry. I just want to try it because it's available.
Like this.
Yeah, I saw those, and I'm just...
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's really good, but it's probably the only one I'll ever drink, because I don't drink a lot of dark soda to begin with.
Does it really taste like Oreos?
Strangely, it's like somebody took vanilla Coke and crushed up like the outer parts of the Oreo and put it in there.
Pretty good representation.
It's interesting.
See, now I want vanilla Oreos, the white and cream Oreos.
The golden.
Yeah, golden. They're my favorites. Yeah, evil is weird, and it would be very hard to convince enough people on the planet as a whole that we should do this over that because good. Because you would have to enforce a very strict and stringent perspective on so many people.
It's either that, or you would have to be clever enough to be able to convince people how they're connected to everybody else, and then be able to show them in a way like, if somebody did this to you, how would you feel? Because when you understand your connection to everybody else, that's that empathy. And then you really think about it, well, yeah, how would that make me feel, somebody treating me like that? The problem is actually getting people to listen.
Do you believe such a thing would be possible?
I do. I think with the internet nowadays, if somebody was able to communicate the right ideas in the right manner, I think it could spread like wildfire. I think people are itching for some kind of truth or some kind of hope or positivity, some kind of good message to come forward
Right.
to help things out.
The problem is with every person out there that's trying to preach truth, there is another who is willing to manipulate for selfish means. So I personally do not believe the human race is capable of experiencing something like that or being awake. It would have to be on a massive instantaneous scale. Like the curtain would have to be pulled or the veil would have to be broken to everyone at once for it to happen. Otherwise, there are going to be people that refuse.
Another way I look at it, though, is it's like you pull that veil back for one person. The veil is pulled back for one person, and then that one person can pull the veil back for another. And we might not see it in our generation, but it could end up causing a ripple effect that does change the planet. And you are right; not everybody will give into it. There'll be people that fight it and
But I also
want to keep their power. And
eventually down the line, if you keep doing it one person by one person, eventually somebody with malevolent intent is going to say, I can use this.
but you get enough people that have had that veil lifted, and enough people that are able to show other people how to lift the veil and what love really is, then I don't think anybody would be able to manipulate that, because there'd already be a whole group of people saying, "Nah, bro, that's not love. You're not living in a place of love by acting like that."
Maybe.
Because when the veil is lifted and you experience what love is, again, there's that vibration that's there to it. It's an energy, it's a vibration, it's a frequency, and I feel like there's no mistaking it when you feel it. You just know that, hey, that's it. And I feel like when you feel that and learn to stay tapped into it in daily life, it'll guide your life. It's literally, I'll go ahead and say it, even though people hate hearing it. It's literally Christ guiding your life. Like that's the most, I feel like, human way I can put it. You're tapped into something where you're allowing Christ to guide your life in every decision you make.
Do you believe there has to be a balance, though?
I believe there always is going to be a balance in life.
So if there is someone who understands true love, a human being that understands true love, then the law of nature says there will be one who understands true hatred.
I think we've already seen both in life.
So there will always be a war or a clash between love and hate, good and evil.
Yep. It's that balance in nature that the Hindus talk about. It's like
I think all religions really talk about a balance, right?
Well, the Hindus put it as a balance of nature, the love and fear, or love and hate, having the hate there, or the evil, that it's a part of nature. A lot of
them make it more pronounced in the religion,
but they actually believe it's just part of nature, where other religions believe there was a certain thing that caused the evil to be here, like an event.
Yeah, an origin.
Where they believe, and I think even the Taoists believe, it's just something that arises naturally.
Right. Not that I don't know, but are there any religions that we know of that claim that one or the other can overcome?
I thought most religions believed that the forces of good always triumph over the forces of evil.
I mean, yeah, I don't know of any that says evil prevails in the end. I mean, I'm sure there are.
Right.
But
Because if everything God created, if what the Bible says is true, that everything God created was good, and then evil came about, there was a purpose for it, which I feel like when the purpose is fulfilled and is no longer needed, then everything will return to that state that just is that
Right.
being good.
Do you believe that there can be a long period of time of imbalance?
Yes, I think the Hindus also believe that with the yugas. They believe right now we're in that time of great imbalance, which is the Kali Yuga, the time of darkness, that we're the least in this cycle with the four yugas. The Kali Yuga is like the least spiritual, the least enlightened, where we're like our connection from God is the furthest that it ever is. And then from there, we kind of go back around.
Something has to happen to rebalance.
I want to say the rebalance in what the Hindus believe is when the next incarnation of Vishnu comes,
Oh,
or Krishna, or
Madhyada Krishna.
no, Krishna was an incarnation of Vishnu, I believe. I'm getting it a little mixed up, so I apologize. But I believe the next incarnation's name is supposed to be Kalki. At least that's what they believe. And he's the one that's supposed to come end the Kali Yuga and push us into the next age when we're getting more enlightened. Things are starting to get better.
So a prophet.
Basically, he would be like the incarnation, the avatar, basically.
Some would say that a certain orange fellow with bright blonde hair is pretty prophetic.
Prophetic in maybe a physical sense, but I don't know about a spiritual sense.
Oh, yeah. Definitely not. Definitely not a spiritual sense. No. But a bringer of great change, he could be. But who knows? I don't know. It's definitely over the last. You've expressed how you've had a closer connection with spirituality, and you're finding more similarities with Christ. I myself, even over the last 6-7 years, have felt something very strange and powerful kind of happening, and it feels evil. Hard to explain, but it really does feel like there is some kind of greater evil,
some kind of spiritual battle that is leaking down into the physical plane.
Yeah,
that's. I feel like that's one of the best descriptors I can put to it.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people would agree, because there's been a lot of really strange shit happening. Very
go check out I believe it was a 1998 or 1999 interview with Terrence McKenna, where he talks about things are gonna just keep getting weirder and weirder until we're all gonna have to talk about it.
Which is weird because we have the internet now, where we literally have the ability to talk about it. But so many people don't want to talk about it. It's the craziest thing.
I think
we've never been able to be closer, yet we're so far away.
I think people just want to be. They want their viewpoint to be right.
Confirmation bias.
Yep, they want their viewpoint to be right so badly that they just won't listen to anything anyone else has to say. And if they're listening, they're only listening to respond and not to understand the person.
That kind of comes, I believe, in a form of like cognitive dissonance. Even if you're given all of the information in the world, like I make a statement, blatantly false. You send me a link to an article. I read through the article, but what I'm looking for is something that goes against what you're trying to say. That's a form of cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias, where I'm not trying to have a legitimate conversation. I literally just want to tear down what you're saying. That, I believe, is 99.999999999% of people who even engage on social media at all. Because it's not like you're forced to actually sit there and deal with it, you know? It was a different time when you could feel humiliation in a group of your peers for saying something stupid. Now you don't. You just
I still do sometimes. I say some dumb shit sometimes, and I'm like, oh, that was fucking stupid.
Sometimes, but it's very rare because you can just turn your phone off and then walk away. Like, there's no accountability for the dumb shit you just said at all. No accountability. Why would there be? I think public forums need to be not enforced. They need to be encouraged more, where speaking in public, that way when somebody really does say something really, really stupid, we would be able to show them that it is, and then they feel embarrassment for being wrong. That way they are encouraged to then try to get a little bit smarter, maybe, because it's just so easy to lie. It's so easy to lie nowadays. You can just literally say whatever you want behind a fake profile picture and just
you can even do that on the national news. Just say whatever you want.
But it's your face still, you know.
you can be the vice president of the country and just say whatever you want, and it doesn't have to be true.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We're running on vibes and joy. Whatever the fuck that means.
Hey, it's a brat summer. That's all I know.
Yeah. I'm going to have a lot of fun come this election cycle. I'm, of course, going to go vote, but then I am driving to every place that I can get to within a day and just try to interview people. It's going to be interesting. Can't wait.
It is going to be interesting because I'm doing something November 5th, and when I come down from that, the country's going to have a new president, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be like jumping timelines, like, holy shit, man. Someone was our president before we took the L, and now someone else is our president. That was the longest trip ever, man.
That's like one of those terrible jokes right on New Year's Eve. I'll see you next year. Shut up!
I still say that.
Shut up! Stop saying it.
To take that similar joke further, every night I work when I leave the house, I say, all right, babe, love you. See you tomorrow. Because I come home after midnight. So.
I mean, it's true.
So I got to say that joke every year.
It's, yeah, this election's going to be scary for us.
I wonder if it's going to take weeks and weeks.
They've already said it will.
It might.
MSNBC, CNN have already said we will not be able to count the votes in one day. We will not have the results. We won't.
Well,
They've already said it.
1 day is fine, but how long did it take? It was 2 weeks or something.
This is
to
why
get all of the counts.
Yeah, to finalize it.
Joe was announced as the winner the next day. Like, he had enough electoral votes for sure. But they're saying it's going to be the same thing. We won't know until the next morning, and it's like, this has literally never happened in American politics. We know the results the same night. What is the point of having electronic counting machines?
Yeah, because we've done paper ballots forever,
and we were still able to count them.
Yeah,
but now we can't. Why?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. We have more tools
than ever before.
Yeah,
we got everything covered. We want to talk about for evil for the day.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
All right, all right.
I'm still gonna wait for the.
So before we kick the outro, I talked to these guys before the episode, and unfortunately, this will be my last episode of Through the Looking Glass. The experience I was talking about throughout this episode, I had a very, very clear vision for my life, and I've had this vision twice in the past, and I've ignored it, and I feel like if I don't follow it, it's just going to cause way more depression, anxiety, and what ifs in life, and it's going to drive me to a very bad place. So I have to stay focused on that vision and do whatever it takes to manifest that in my life. Russ, Jesse, I want to thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I've had a great time doing this with you guys.
You'll be welcome back.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely be back as a guest many times. So for sure,
it's not like it's your final goodbye.
Yeah. Just I won't be here every week anymore. Hopefully, within a month or two, I do plan on having a channel up on YouTube, and hopefully, I can have that going and get to talking about some of these interesting things I've experienced and trying to make sense of it. And I think it's just something different for people to hear too. But one of the things I did have a small revelation about was like, there's so many people talking about what's going on in society. I think people are looking for something fresh, something new, something that's like a breath of fresh air. And I don't want to contribute to any more like hate or division and chaos. I feel like I'm just focused on this path of music and speaking what I feel like I've learned about love and how to incorporate that into your life, because that's a big one. So, again, thank you guys for the opportunity. I had a great time doing this with you guys, and I'll definitely be back on as a guest. And I really hope you guys keep this going too. Like,
we'll find
it might take a couple weeks to figure out roles,
I'll definitely be giving you guys shout outs on my page, and hopefully I can send you guys some traffic. So,
after you're done like editing this episode, if you keep the raw unedited, I'll start practicing editing.
Yeah, I still have some of the raw and unedited files. I can make sure I get those to you. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Sure. All right. Jesse, you want to kick that outro?
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's a interesting episode. Going over evil and love, where it came from, and touching on love. But subscribe, like, share, comment, and we'll see you in a couple weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, we will. We got things to do.
And on that note, goodbye. Goodbye.
You're staring into my soul.